Well, I started this film, I signed on in 2017, so it's literally been 5 years, and, as a filmmaker, the thing you wanna do is you wanna just keep working on something and working on something, and so right now we're in this moment where the movie's done, and all I can really do is wait, but we've started showing it to audiences, we started showing it to people, and it's so exciting to see this movie with an audience and on the big screen, and so it's this great moment where finally you feel like, "Okay, you feel like you've kind of raised this kid. I have this 5-year-old, but it's Batman, and we're gonna put him out to the world, and I'm super excited. I can't wait for everyone to see the movie." I mean, I think what was important to me was I knew that as a baseline, you had to give people, Batman is a character that people love, and he's been around for over 80 years, and they're great movies. So I knew there had to be, you couldn't make a Batmobile movie. I mean, you couldn't make a Batman movie without making a movie that had a great Batmobile chase. It had to have all the spectacle. It had to have all the things that you're gonna expect, and we do all of that. But I also felt like it was really important that the movie justify a new iteration, that it needed to be distinctive and stand on its own as a new special thing. And I thought we'd never really seen the world's greatest detective as the subject of the movie. Like Out of the Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, this idea of telling a kind of serial killer story and Batman trying to unravel the mystery in a way that had such detail that you'd never seen before, that was kind of almost like a thriller and a horror movie and all of those things together. And I thought that that could be really fresh and different. And so that was really why. When I was writing, I was trying to sort of get to know as many young actors as possible, people in the age, because I knew that I wanted this to be a year 2 Batman. And I had followed Rob's work since Twilight, because he started working with all of these really, really interesting filmmakers like Claire Denis and Robert Eggers and James Gray and David Cronenberg, and he always was doing fascinating work. And he was like a chameleon. He would change and transform. Each one has like a different voice, a different look, a different vibe, and incredible work. So while I was doing that, somebody said, well, you should see him in Good Time, which is a movie by the Safdie brothers. And in that movie, he had an incredible and desperate drive. He was so obsessive. And I thought, oh, that's an obsessive Batman drive. And for some reason, I just, seeing that movie unlocked for me that this was the right guy for Batman. And I started, without knowing if he would want to be Batman, because after doing all these really interesting sort of art films, would he want to do another blockbuster? Would he want to be Batman? I wrote it for him, and it turns out he loves Batman as much as I do, and we're really connected. And so thank God he wanted to be Batman, because in my mind, it could only be him. So that was really why. I was a huge fan of Zoe's, and I wanted, when I was, as with Rob, I needed to sort of familiarize myself. I wanted to meet her. So I met her, and we connected right away, and I knew I liked her as an actor, but when I met her as a person, I thought, oh, she's incredibly thoughtful. She was thinking really, really deeply about this character. And what was important to me was that this, while it wasn't an origin tale for Batman, it really is the origins of these other characters, because the Rogues Gallery kind of creates itself in relation to the fact that this masked vigilante called Batman shows up in Gotham. So I thought, oh, we have a chance here with Selina Kyle to show her pre-Catwoman. And so that means that we really have to understand her as a flesh and blood character. And Zoe had great sort of understanding and insight. And I just, seeing her and talking to her, I was like, oh, I think it's her. And then I did a screen test, because we had to make sure that she would have chemistry with Rob. And they were friends. And so the moment, it's one of those things where you had the camera on them and we all just stood and we said, oh, this is it. It was one of those things where there was a kind of magic that they had in their chemistry. And it only got better when we were shooting. There was just, there's something very special about what they have together in this film, and but about what she's done with this character, which I feel like is a more humanized and very distinctive version, something different from anything you've ever seen. What was important to me in the film was, because the Riddler was leaving all of this correspondence at all of these murders and sort of taking down these supposedly legitimate pillars of power that were sort of holding Gotham up. As he was tearing them down, the intent was to describe the corruption in this city, the corruption that had gone back for years, and certainly back 20 years to when Bruce's father was killed. And so for me, Gotham needed to be a character in the film. And so I wanted to make sure that we didn't do a Gotham that was either, because the movie was going to be so grounded, so the Anton Furst stuff that was done in the Burton verse was so cool and really special, but very theatrical. And Nolan had done a particular take, but at a certain point, after sort of Batman Begins sort of defines itself in a very specific way, but in a certain way, he started going off to it sort of more global. And then you would say like, oh, I guess Chicago or maybe parts of Pittsburgh. And I was like, well, what I want to do is I want this to be an American city that you can't identify. I wanted you to feel like it was a place you'd never been to before, but that felt truly Gothic and truly American. So we actually chose a number of locations that would not have been used for Batman before because they weren't big cities. We shot in Liverpool, and we used the architecture there, the Gothic architecture, and then we used CG sort of buildings and stuff. Our amazing production designer, James Chenland, and my amazing, from the Apes movies that I did, Dan Lemon, our amazing VFX supervisor, they worked to take that real photography and then add in the sort of more modern structures and all of the giant sort of, LED screens and all the stuff that you would see in Times Square so that we could create. I didn't want to shoot sort of Gotham Square in Times Square because you go, I guess it's New York. I wanted us to have our own. And so we tried to make a signature look so that people would feel like they were seeing this place that felt American, but a place they'd never seen before, so they could see it for the very first time in this movie.